All right, we're on the play here for match 5 of the league, currently 2-2. Hopefully we can pull out a win here. This hand looks pretty good. I would say so. Spell Snare is probably not doing anything on curve, but I think that's at least okay. I kind of want to start off on a breeding pool off of this flooded strand here. I don't really want to mill the breeding pool using the Thought Scour is our turn 1 play basically. And I don't want to end up milling breeding pool and not being able to get a green source off of flooded strand. So I think we're going to concede a bunch of points of damage if we happen to be playing against burn. And just lead on the flooded strand anyways. Here's a sleight of hand for the opponent. Smells like Storm. Which actually makes me not want to slam Tarmogoyf on turn 2, so we can hold up Spell Snare for the inevitable Brawl. Or Electromancer, I suppose. The flip side to that is we can slam the Goyf, dismember the cost reducer once we untap, and then just Spell Snare whatever second copy they have. So I don't really hate doing that either. Here's a Serum Visions, which is probably going to play into the 1-2 and then 3 punch. Well, I guess we would start on Visions in that case. Milling, Delver of Secrets, Stubborn Denial. Goyf's at 4-5 thanks to that Thought Scour. I kind of want to start off on a Forest. Make the opponent maybe question at least somewhat what we're on. That's not really relevant at all, I don't think, though. So let's go with Steam Vents. The opponent might be on some sort of Prowess build, maybe even a Delver deck. I'm going to assume it's Storm, though. That's the most likely possibility. Well, they're paying costs, so it's another sleight of hand. Them not having a cost reducer on 2 makes me very happy. Looks like they slighted into the island. I imagine if you have the island in hand, you're probably starting there. I'm going to fetch out a basic forest here, but I'm not going to use both Serum Visionses. Only going to be casting one. I want to be able to Spell Snare and Dismember so that we can play around anything funky. One of these Delvers looks pretty good. The second one, not quite as... Is it relevant for us to be able to play around so much stuff? I think Dismember alone is fine, but then we don't have Spell Snare up. I'd rather have Spell Snare up. Let's hit the opponent. 5-turn clock here for us, which is good. The opponent can't... Maybe they Ritual into Baral, into Remand, but if we see a Ritual here, we're just going for the counter. We're going to take out Baral. Actually, we're going to Mana Leak Baral since they can't Ritual into a Remand or anything of the sort. So I think I want to get the more expensive counterspell out of hand. This leaves us somewhat susceptible to Gifts Ungiven, which is a fair concern. I think I'm okay with that. Spell Snare is very good against Storm. Hits tons of scary cards. We're not going to use the Serum Visions here. We're just going to go Delver with Breeding Pool. Spell Snare is assigned to Steam Vents and Dismember. Continually relegated to the Forest. Smoothing out our mana quite nicely, I think, Dismember. I really like the card. You pay 4 life for it, but at the same time, it makes it so that you don't have to fetch and shock so aggressively, which is quite nice. Doesn't quite make up for it, but it helps. The opponent has been stumbling on lands for quite a bit here. We're going to let this Electromancer resolve, and then we're just going to Dismember it. I want to hold up Spell Snare. If we go for snaring the Electromancer, I don't think I like it quite as much. I'm not entirely sure why I don't like it quite as much. My intuition is that we should hold up Spell Snare in this spot and go for the Dismember. If they have something like Remand on Dismember, that actually doesn't matter that much. If they go for Apostle's Blessing, we can snare that. On their end step, we're going to try to take out the Electromancer. Go to 10. We'll see if Delver transforms here. I imagine Dismember is going to resolve, but it might not. If the opponent remands it, we probably just cast it again. Go down to 6. It's also possible we want to untap here to play around Apostle's Blessing. I'm going to look up what percentages of Storm lists play Apostle's Blessing in the main. I don't see any on Goldfish, so that's good. I also don't see any in the sideboard. Probably just not worth it. Using the Dismember here instead of on our well, not the upkeep, but on our turn, we'd be able to Dismember the Electromancer, have Spell Snare up. If they don't do anything in response to the Dismember, we cast Visions, we still have Spell Snare up. Whereas in this spot, we probably are going to lose to an Apostle's Blessing here. That is working under the assumption that the opponent is just able to go off with an Electromancer in play. So I think I want to make it as likely as possible that we deal with this Electromancer. Hooting Mandrill's not going to get revealed. Probably not being cast either. Let's deal with this. I don't mind going low. If it means the opponent can't storm off, it's probably just fine. Knock the opponent down to 6. And I don't think we need to play around any more remands. I believe I'd rather have Serum Visions. I'm not entirely sure about that. It's also possible we say screw Serum Visions, tutor out a Snapcaster Mage. Not having Lightning Bolt in the bin makes that a little worse. Okay, so if they have Remand here, they need to Remand with any accelerant on the stack, so I think that's fine. That taps them out. Unless they go Ritual Remand, but they don't have much mana. They need a lot of stuff at that point. Let's bottom both of these. Use the Bauble here. Unfortunately, we didn't have Bauble previously. Look at their top card. We know what we're drawing. Well, actually, we don't, but it doesn't matter because we're just going to draw it. Such as right now. Hey, an island. If they have Ritual, Mana Accelerant, plus Remand, I think they are probably in a good spot. But I don't think that's something we really care to play around because they need the third Accelerant. I'm kind of in the mood for Spell Snaring that. You guys know that Manamorphose is something I like to counter with Extreme Prejudice. If we hit that, that means they won't be able to play a land and remand or use any rituals in response. I like that a lot. They can play a land and try to ritual manually, but it's a lot harder for them to go off that way. So I think we're just going to take out the Manamorphose here. They have a land. I imagine you just shock and go for it, given that you're facing down lethal. They have a second Manamorphose. They're going to have 2 mana in pool. They drew a card. I'm not sure how they win from here, though. They need more rituals and then some Manamorphoses to get blue mana. They need at least one ritual. Here's one. Do they have a second? They need another ritual or a Manamorphose, possibly both. The opponent's trying to go off. If they don't win this turn or present a very large number of goblins, we just win. If Delver transforms off of a burn spell, we just win anyways. Here's Grape Shot to deal with Delver, I imagine. Oh no, we're dead. Are we dead? Holy, are we dead? I need to know. I need to know right now. We're at 6 because of the Dismembers. Did they have it? Did we just go to 1? They scooped. Oh my god. Are you guys freaking out right now? I'm freaking out right now. I'm going to go to the sideboard. Our opponent revealed their hand to us. So I guess taking out the Dismember, pretty decent, I think. Whether or not it is, I don't actually care that much because we don't use results to dictate whether or not we made the right play, unless we're talking about a very large number of results. Then sure. I'm going to take out Nux. So maybe using Dismember a bunch of times wasn't good. We could have snared their Remand, which would have put us at +4 life. That means we have one fewer snare in hand. Being at 10 does feel a lot better than 6, having seen the opponent's hand though. Nux is slow, doesn't attack well. We're going to take out one Traverse. I don't want to spend all my time cantripping. I want to actually do stuff in this matchup, affect the board. Take out a Vapor Snag, 2 temporary. We've been through this a lot of times. I'm going to continue, I think, explaining my choices while sideboarding here. Just for the people who may or may not be tuning in for the first time, we're going to also board out Disrupting Shoal. It is good in this matchup. Tempo is pretty important against Storm. Shoal, very good against combo decks generally. They just don't have a lot of ones we want to counter. I mean, cantrips? I'm not looking to counter a bunch of cantrips. Some stuff we're going to board in includes the 2 Pyroclasm. We're looking to have an out to empty the Warrens, make sure they can't cheese a game with that. That's not even cheesing a game, really. I think that's a legitimate win when you just make a bunch of tokens out of nowhere. That's fair. That is completely fair. Mountain, swapping with Traverse. Help us play out threats instead of cantrips, disruption instead of cantrips. And Flash Freeze counters most of their deck. It doesn't counter the blue cards. Counters the red and green cards, which is pretty good. A lot of their important cards are red, Past in Flames, Manamorphose. Green, well, I mean, Flash Freeze counters red or green, so Manamorphose is both. But specifically green cards, you have Nauseous Revival. And, I mean, it's not nothing that we get to counter Nauseous Revival. It's not huge. Also not nothing. Plenty of disruption here, and a Serum Visions. We notably don't have all 3 colors. We're also pretty weak to a Baral, so I think this is a mulligan. This hand I would much rather keep. Pyroclasm, I don't think we want the second one. Not with a Bolt in hand. We are going to want to be wary of the opponent ritualing into a Blood Moon. Don't think we're full on expecting it. It is something they're capable of. Now, we could allow ourselves to get a basic Forest if they happen to go Ritual Blood Moon, but I would much rather just cast Visions here. I don't think it's all that likely that they actually have Ritual Blood Moon and want to go for it, as opposed to we Visions, we have a threat on top, we drew another Visions, we probably don't need the 4th land in this matchup. We're just going to pass it to them. On the draw, I think it's worth holding up Spell Snare over most plays. If you know you're up against Storm, here's a Baral, we're going to bolt that, cast another Visions. If they have second Baral, not going to be great for us. If they have Electromancer as the follow-up, that's not quite as bad. I don't hate getting a basic Forest off of this Foothills. I also kind of want to cast Visions, so I think I'm going to grab a Breeding Pool and just say, if you do have Blood Moon and that's your plan, so be it. I think it's much more important that we execute our game plan than play around our opponent's way of cheesing out a game. Ritual into Blood Moon is cheesing out a game, as far as I'm concerned. I like both of these cards. Do I actually really want Delver? Means that we can go Pyroclasm, play Delver, which is definitely not nothing. Let's Bolt Baral, go to the opponent. Lightning Bolt, a good follow-up to Pyroclasm plus Delver. Second Baral. We're now waiting on the Bolt. We can Thought Scour them, which honestly seems at least somewhat bad, because they are using their graveyard, so are we. But on the other hand, we have a Lightning Bolt on top of our deck, and I'd like to hit it. We're going to use the Bolt before casting Delver of Secrets, just in case there's a Remand hiding somewhere. We want to make sure Baral goes down. Don't want the opponent to be untapping with Baral. This is going to be pretty sweet for the opponent. They get to draw off of the remand and then loot with Baral. We're probably just going to bolt in response, just on the off chance that they draw into something that costs them 0 mana. No clock yet, which is definitely not ideal. Quite far from it. And it's honestly quite possible that the opponent can go off with 4 lands. But I think I'm still okay with this. The opponent knew that we had the lightning bolt in hand because they just remanded it. So I don't think we're actually giving them any extra information for their loot. The opponent discarded a Shivan Reef. Either they have the 4th land or they don't care for it. Here's a Visions. Next turn, hopefully we can slam some threats. We don't know what we're drawing next turn. We were pretty lucky that we milled over Steam Vents and Opt. Those aren't cards that are fantastic in the opponent's graveyard. Opt isn't bad once they're already going off. Things like Past in Flames are terrible to mill. Here's an Electromancer. We probably just Pyroclasm. Or we Dismember it and go to 10. I think I like Dismember, go to 10, play Goyf. That seems like the safest play. It's a little more risky if they can just go off with Grapeshot out of nowhere, but it's going to make it so that we have an out to empty the Warrens, which I think is worse for us. Let's go to 10. The opponent doesn't have Remand up. If they did, I'm not sure we even play the Dismember a second time. Having seen Game 1, I'm not actually entirely sure we made our right plays in Game 1, given that we won at 1 life. That was pretty terrifying. Storm ended up at 5 due to the Grapeshot being cast. If Storm was any higher, we were very dead. The opponent with nothing could be a Ritual into a Gifts Ungiven. I'm a little wary of shocking here. I definitely like attacking. And I think we play out both of our threats just to speed up the clock. Now, does that actually speed up the clock? It makes defensive Grapeshot a lot worse. I like playing this tapped. And honestly, I kind of want to just tap out here. We still have lethal in 2 turns. It's a 2-turn clock as long as we're playing out this Goyf, which I think is undoubtedly right. I don't hate pretending we have Stubborn Denial, Spell Snare, Dispel, something like that in hand. I'm not glued to the idea. In previous videos against Storm, I've straight up said I don't want to bluff here. I'd rather play out my threats. Here's a Remand, and that makes me want to play the Delver of Secrets, actually. They get to know we have a Goyf in hand, but this means they're not going Ritual Gifts, which is something I like. It also means we have a guaranteed 3-turn clock, whereas we didn't have that previously. Empty the Warren's not going to be very scary. Does mean we lose Delver if we have to deal with it, but I'm pretty okay with losing Delver if it means we deal with the opponent's Storm. Looks like they're trying to cantrip into a land to replace that Shivan Reef they discarded a few turns ago. They found one in Basic Island. And we could see some spells being cast here, maybe chaining some stuff together for a defensive Grapeshot. If the opponent slams an Electromancer here, I actually think we strongly consider using Pyroclasm to clear it away. If they have Baral, obviously that doesn't work. Here's a defensive Grapeshot, 1 to Delver, a couple to us. They had to use the Shivan Reef for it, so our clock isn't that bad. I'm not sure that's actually relevant. They didn't take out Delver. They're definitely storming off shortly. I am almost positive the opponent has lethal in hand. Otherwise, they definitely take out Delver. We're going to put them down to 9, play out Tarmogoyf, ensure we have lethal on board. I'm fairly certain we're going to die here. I'm not entirely sure how, but I'm fairly certain it's going to happen. It's possible the opponent's reading us right now. Pyretic Ritual, knowing that we tapped out for Delver, so they're probably thinking we just don't have counters. Is the 1 point that relevant, though? I mean, a Storm player would know. I wouldn't. But I think you can easily justify sending one of those grape shots at Delver. It potentially saves you a turn of damage. That means you have another turn to go off, go for bigger, go for better. I don't know. It depends on whether or not you need every point of this grape shot. If the opponent sends 8 grape shots at us, then I think, well, it also involves whether or not they think they can send 8 grape shots at us. But if they do think they can grape shot for 8 damage here, they should absolutely be sending one of those grape shots to the Delver to buy themselves an extra turn in most scenarios. If we had a bolt that we're saving for their face, we probably don't use Dismember there. Here's a Nauseous Revival, likely target. Ooh, Remand. Oh, are they going? No, they can't Grape Shot, Remand Grape Shot. Yes, they can. They have plenty of mana here. They need to draw it, though, so we could be seeing a Manamorphose. Here's Grape Shot. Trigger. Some Grape Shots coming at us. They have a Remand on top of their deck, but they need to draw a card to Remand this Grape Shot. Fun thing that Storm can do is they Grape Shot you for, say, 10, Remand their own Grape Shot. The copies all resolve, doming you for 9 or 10. Now they're taking out Delver. And then they cast the Grape Shot again, having sent it back to their hand. Storm is now slightly higher, and they deal the other half of the damage, which I think is absolutely awesome. Here's Empty the Warrens. That's fantastic for us. I'm 90% sure that means we won. Four or 5 Tarmogoyfs, of course, able to survive a Pyroclasm. We just top decked Stubborn Denial, which came at a very convenient time. Having the Pyroclasm to deal with that makes me pretty happy that we saved it and didn't use it on that Electromancer, instead electing to use the Dismember. That makes me pretty happy. Nice to get rewarded for the plays that you think are right. Anyways, we managed to pull a 3-2 out of this league, which, quite frankly, when we first got crushed by Grixis Death Shadow, spoiler alert for anybody who didn't watch the league sequentially, but anyways, we got crushed by Grixis Death Shadow, and it was not close. When that happened, I was pretty concerned. When we were doing good work against Affinity, I was pretty happy with how the league turned up, and then they did that thing they did, which was awesome, and it turned out the league might not have gone so well, but here we are pulling a win out 2-0 against Storm for 3-2 in this league. That's pretty great as far as I'm concerned. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.